Right now, I want to show you how to set up your email autoresponder campaign. And hopefully by now you've gone through those 3 templates that I gave you and you've customized your emails that are specific now to your lead magnet that you're going to send out. So let's go ahead and look how to actually configure everything in MailingBoss. And the good news is it's really, really easy. So what you're going to do is you just pop to the menu structure on the left, and the second item there is the MailingBoss autoresponder. So if we click on that, what it will do is it'll bring up MailingBoss for us, and then all we're going to do is we're going to click Welcome to MailingBoss, and now it's really going to take us into the MailingBoss platform. Now, of course, the nice thing about Builderall and MailingBoss is that they are integrated, so life becomes very easy for us. And even easier is this little button up here called Workflow. So that's the button that you want to click. And what this allows you to do is to create a very, very visual look and feel for what you're doing. So everything is drag and drop, so you can see visually exactly what it is that you're doing. So it's a pretty nifty feature to have. So the very first thing we're going to do up here, you'll see workflow name. So we're just going to go and create a workflow name, and what I will call this is free website tutorial. And you can see we've got elements and we've got workflows over here. Elements are these elements that you see over here, the list, the email campaign, and the email sequence. And a workflow is what we're busy creating. So you can see I've got a couple of workflows already created, but of course we are creating a new one. So the first thing we have to do is to pull an element onto the canvas. And the very first element we're going to pull is the list. So really it's just a case of left click and literally you just drag it onto the canvas and you let it go. And just like that, you've got the makings of your first list. We haven't quite created it yet, but at least we can visually see what we have to do. So let's go ahead and actually create it. So in order to do that and to do everything else that you see or that you're going to see as we put this automation together for you, is you're just going to click on the pencil icon. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And you can see it brings up a choice for us. So we can go and choose a list. If we click on that, these are some of the other lists that I have, but you're probably not going to have that. This is in all probability going to be the first list you're going to create. So we'll just click here and we'll say create new. You can see I created this before, so luckily for me it's sitting there in my memory. So I'll just click on free website tutorial. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste that across to the display name, because I want that to be the display name in any event, because it makes a lot of sense. And just for brevity for now, I'll just pop that into the description. Of course, you can put anything that you want into the description. You can put a little bit more detail in there than I'm doing now, but as this is just for tutorial purposes. Then of course we've got the opt-in, and you'll remember earlier on we spoke about single and double opt-in. That's your choice. If you go back to the Autoresponder 101 video, you'll find that I'm going to make this single opt-in, and I'm going to make it a single opt-out. You always want to make it a single opt-out, by the way. In fact, I'm not even sure why they bothered to give you the option of a double. If somebody wants out, you must just let them out. Otherwise, you open yourself for all sorts of issues. Anyway, once we've done that, now we'll just go ahead and we create the list, and now we have a number of options. We can update our list, which clearly we don't have to do just at the moment because we've just created it. We can edit list pages and email contents. Now, these are not the pages that we are referring to. Those are actually static pages that are inherent in the system, and also there are a couple of emails that are inherent, but we're not going to use any of those. We're actually going to use our own pages and our own emails. The one thing we do want to do is click on this create or edit list field. So let's go ahead and do that. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up an option for us to add in additional fields. So anytime we create an email list, there's always going to be the default field of the email, obviously, because otherwise it's not an email list. But we also want to get their first name when they subscribe. So we're just going to add on this very first one here, this add a text field, and we're just going to type in here first name. Then we're going to pop in a tag, and we'll just call that F name. Is it required? Yeah, absolutely it's required. So we'll change that to a yes. Do we want it to be visible? So that means they must actually be able to see it on the form. Well, that's generally a good idea, so we'll say yes. And as you can see here, we've got another column here for sort order. Now the interesting thing with this sort order is that 0 will actually be the first item that shows, and 1 will be the second item. So generally we want the first name to show first, and then the email is the field that we've created at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we'll go down to the bottom here and we'll make that number 1. So later on, as you'll see when we connect up our list, what will happen is automatically, because we've structured it this way, the first name will be first, and then the email will be second. And then we just scroll down to the bottom and we click on Save Changes. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back to design, because you can see up here it's given us the success signal. Your form has successfully been saved. So let's go back to design. And now you can see that our form has a name. It's now called Free Website Tutorial, which is exactly what we called it. Now the next step is to start populating it with our email. So if we click on the green arrow, this gives us a number of choices that we can now do with this particular list. Now I'm not going to go through the first couple. You can certainly look at the tutorials on the Builderall platform. They'll take you through that. For now, the only thing I want you to know about is an email campaign and an email sequence. So an email campaign is really just a fancy word for a single email, and an email sequence is a number of email campaigns, or in our case we have 3 email campaigns in the email sequence. So we need to create a sequence first. So we'll click on the sequence, and again, just like you saw when we created the list, it gives us the opportunity to choose one that already exists or to create a new one. And of course we're going to go and create a new one, and I'm actually just going to call it, I'm just going to copy and paste that. I'm just going to call it Free Website Tutorial, and I'm just going to call this Sequence, just so that it becomes easy for us to recognize. The list, we know that that's the list. Obviously, I think we can still change it here. No, we can't, because this is the list, obviously, that we're working in at the moment. And now we need to determine who we're going to send it to. So we can either send it to future subscribers only, or we can send it to current and future subscribers. So the reason you would send it to current and future subscribers would be where potentially you already had some subscribers and you hadn't sent them an email sequence, and later on you decide, oops, now it's actually time to send it to them. Then you would click that. But as this is probably your first list, we're just going to send it to future subscribers only. And then of course they want to know how many messages are in the sequence, and we know that there are 3. So we'll click 3, and then what we'll do is we will create. And now what it's going to do for us is it's going to now give us the option to go and set things up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click OK, so that you can actually see what actually happened on the canvas. So now we've got our email sequence over here. We've got 3 email campaigns that are attached to this email sequence. And I'm going to just save at this point, which is a very, very good habit that you definitely want to get into when you are playing around in Mailing Boss, because if you don't save and you click out of here, you're going to be really, really sorry. So just going back into the email sequence, I just want to go and choose it now. And we'll just say OK. Now you can see the name has come up. So now we know it's the Free Website Tutorial Sequence. Right, so now we've set up the sequence. The sequence has 3 emails that they've set up for us in terms of the system. And now what we've got to do is we've actually got to go into those emails and configure them. So of course, as is usual by now, we click the blue pencil over there, and it now basically takes us into a number of options that we have. Now I'm not going to go through all of these options, because the only one that's really important for us right now is to set up that email. So we'll click on Email Setup. And what it's going to do is it's going to just take us through a couple of screens for us to get everything set up, to make sure that all of our details are correct, and then we'll actually put the verbiage. In other words, what you'll do is you'll copy and paste the information that you've got when you created your templates earlier on. So it's a pretty simple process for you from this point on. So you just want to make sure that all of this information is correct. So obviously you can see the name, the email address, the reply to. So in my case, I'm happy if somebody sends an email back that it comes back to me. You don't have to mess with this tag. It says email over here, and as you can see there on the tooltip, what this does basically is it inserts their email address. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to have the subject line for our message. Now, just to illustrate this to you, I'm just going to call it welcome message. I'm just going to say 1 of 3. Just so that we can actually identify this particular email. And then I'm just going to click on Save and Next. And now it comes time for me to actually populate this particular email. And this is where I said to you, now just go ahead and copy and paste. But there's a couple of things that I do want to show you here that you should be aware of, that are going to make your life a little bit easier. You see at the bottom here, we have available tags, and what we're able to do with these tags is if we click the tags, automatically, instead of having to obviously put in the information for each individual person, what happens is Mailing Boss automatically puts that information in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor right at the top, and I'm just going to push enter, and I'm going to go to the top. And what I want to do here is I want to put their first name in. So what I'm going to do is, now that I've positioned my cursor where I want the tag to be, I'll go and I'll click on the tags, and you'll see there's a ton of tags that are happening here. And Some of them you'll use, the majority of them you won't, but for whatever reason, the one we use the most is right at the bottom. So let's go all the way down. And we are going to click on this fname tag. So if we go and click fname, so that's going to be the first name. So remember, when they opt in, they're going to opt in with their name and email. Whatever name they opted in with, that's going to be over here. Then this is the point where you would copy and paste. I'm just going to say welcome email, and we'll leave it at that for the moment. If you wanted to test this email and see that it's correct before you actually do anything, the first thing you want to do is save, and then you'll click on this test template, and it'll give you an opportunity to put an email address in, and then you can send it to yourself. But for now, I'm going to pretend I'm happy with this. I'm going to click save and next. And now it's going to take me to the last screen where I'm actually going to set up the timing for the email. So when do we want to send the email out? Now there's a couple of things we want to be aware of here. When do we want to send it out? Well, I want to send it out after they subscribe, because that's exactly what this particular list is. Now here's an interesting one. This can be a little bit confusing. The autoresponder time value. What we're going to do is this needs to go out immediately. So we're actually going to change that value to 0. That means immediately, and we leave it as the day. So in other words, it's going out at day 0. Who we're going to send it to? Remember, we've already configured that. Send it to our future subscribers only. And then you just want to make sure that all this information at the bottom is correct. It should be, because we've already set up our account, but you can just make 100% sure. And if you want to see what your spam score is, which is often a good idea, you can actually just click on the spam score at the bottom and it'll give you a score. And if you're within the range, you're great. Otherwise, you may need to go into your email and tweak a couple of pieces. Now, here's a very important piece at the bottom. You can save and activate, or you can activate later. So even though we've gone through and we've created this email, it's not active. In other words, it will not go out to our subscribers until we activate it. So I'm going to say save and activate, because I want to do it right now while I'm in the process, because I'm pretty much finished with that particular email. And now you can see the information has now been updated on our first email. So you can see here our free website template tutorial sequence 1. So we know that it's autoresponder. That's going to go after subscribe. It's going to go on day 0, because that's what we set, and we know this one is active. So if you look at the other two, you'll see they paused at the moment, email 2 and email 3. They paused because they're not active yet. And now all you're going to do is you're going to go through this exact same process for the next 2. So again, we'll simply click on the email. We'll go to email setup. We'll check our details. I'll make the sequence message. I'll just say 2 of 3. Again, I'll go save and next. Now again, we have the opportunity to put in some tags. So just to show that to you again, I put my cursor where I want it to be. I then go down to my available tags. For some reason, fname or first name is right at the bottom. We'll click on that. We'll then just make this email 2. Again, you can test. If you're going to test, save it first. I'm not going to test it at this point. I'm just going to go save and next. Remember, now it's going to bring up our timing question again. When do I want it to go out? Now remember, the first email goes out on day 0. Now I want this particular email to go out the following day. So it's not actually day 2, it's day 1, because day 0 is today and day 1 is tomorrow. Again, to future subscribers only, check everything and don't forget to activate. So save and activate. And now we've completed email number 2. So in other words, email campaign number 2 of this email sequence. And all you're going to do is you'll do exactly the same. So let's just do that quickly. We'll go ahead again. We click the pencil icon. We'll go to email setup. We'll just make this email 3. We'll click save and next. I won't bother to make any changes here. You already know how to do that by using the tags. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go save and next. It's now going to give me the information again. Now again, I want this to go out on essentially day 2. So I'm going to change this to day 2. So remember, day 0 was the first email, goes out immediately when they subscribe. The second email went out on day 1. And now the third email here is going to go out on day 2 after they subscribe. Okay. And all the other details should be correct. You can just double check. You can check your spam score, save and activate. And that, my friends, is as easy as it is to set up your 3 email autoresponder. Really, really simple to set up this campaign or the sequence as you've seen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the squeeze page that we created a little bit earlier and just show you now that you've created everything, how easy it is to hook up your autoresponder to your list. But before I do that, we're going to click the good old save button. Otherwise, we may find ourselves in a rather awkward position. Alright, so back in the site, you'll remember that we created a squeeze page, and the squeeze page is asking, and you can see at the moment it says email and first name. So remember, this was just the placeholder element that we dragged onto the page a little bit earlier on. So now what we're going to do to configure it is we right click, and that's the very first option. It's going to say configure, and you'll see there's obviously various options for us to configure, but we've already configured it to be linked to Mailing Boss. So literally you click on free website tutorial, and that is as easy as it is. And now you'll see that it's actually changed it around first name and email, because remember, that's how we set it up earlier on when we were setting up our email sequence. So that is how easy it is to integrate your Mailing Boss autoresponder with your website, and obviously in particular your opt-in form.